Mrs. Callahan, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Sloan. Here. Mr. Hohauser. Here. Sorry. Mr. Baer. Here. Mr. Greenstein. Here. Mrs. Johnson. Here. Mr. McDermott. Here. Mr. Ryan.
Here.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion for the adoption of the agenda, January 8th, 2013. Do I have a second? Mr. Hohauser, all in favor? 7-0, thank you. We will now move to student and community comments. I'd just like to remind everyone to please identify themselves for the record and that there will still be a 3-minute limit. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. I understand the desire to view Port Washington as a small, friendly town where high security is not needed. But we have to take the blinders off and realize that the world has changed. We have to look at the increase in violent acts in schools. We have to catch up to other schools around the country who have recognized this threat and taken action. The fact is, nearly 1/3 of schools in the country have security guards, and many more in Los Angeles, Phoenix, Greenwich, Stanford, Washington, D.C., and many others are either adding them or considering them. Nearly 8,000 schools, including schools in Dallas and Chicago, employ the Raptor Technologies identification system. This identification system does a quick background check on everyone entering a school building and was recently profiled on ABC News. At the very least, every school should have a locked entrance, with only those who are identified gaining access. Like you, I wish that none of this was needed, and not everything need be done at once, but a few small steps can make all the difference. Thank you for your time.
My name's Elizabeth Gentry. My daughter Hannah is in kindergarten at Guggenheim with Mrs. Roberts, where she has blossomed beyond what I ever could have imagined since just this September. But as far as the school security has been concerned, I've been very, very disappointed. Even before the Newtown tragedies, other parents and I have had concerns about the security procedures at Guggenheim. One example of a serious lack of security is that children are allowed to roam the building without any adult supervision. This is to go to the nurse's office, to the library, to the office. This is in a building where the doors are left unlocked, and adults, some of whom even have criminal backgrounds, merely need to show an ID to obtain free access to roam the building. There are times where the front door is not monitored, and anyone can enter the building without even having to show their IDs. Letting children walk in the building unsupervised when random non-school personnel have relatively free access to the building is clearly a safety concern. Not only is there a concern for mass murderers, such as Adam Lanza, there's more concerns for predators and sexual predators, criminals, people that like. In the wake of the past tragedies and knowing that we are unfortunately not immune to horrible things, we owe it to our children and our school staff to be 100% proactive in regards to providing the most safe environment possible. Some ideas that I have for new security procedures include more stringent checks in at the doors to get in and out of the building. There should be a guest list of who's expected during the day, and many buildings in the city have this. You could update it throughout the day. My office building has it. They should be performing checks, just like this last woman mentioned. There's over 8,000 schools in the country already doing this. There should be panic buttons in every classroom and bathroom, nurse's office, not just the front door. There should be supervision of students leaving the classroom. My daughter, who's 5 years old, left her classroom to go to the nurse by herself and didn't know how to get there. There should also be controls put in place to monitor older students who are roaming the buildings and unescorted. There should be armed guards and significantly more police patrol, and there should be a barrier such as a locked buzzer-controlled door to access the school after passing the safety check. Another idea I have is to put in bulletproof windows and doors, which my daughter's nursery school is already doing, which is in Port Washington. And lastly, to have a security consultant evaluate and make recommendations of safety that we should be implementing. While no one measure will prevent anything from happening, each additional measure will no doubt be a deterrent, sending predators somewhere else. Lastly, I would like to take one last second to address communication from the superintendent and Board of Ed with the parents. After the tragedy in December, I felt that we did not adequately respond to the parent body with specific changes that would be implemented and specifically what we have in place now that was sufficient. I have seen communications from other organizations such as the Manhasset Schools and the local JCC.
3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Nicole Eskenazi. I'm the parent of kindergartner at Guggenheim. Since my child started at the school in September, I've been very concerned about the level of security at the school, and of course my concern is now only heightened in the wake of the recent tragic events in Sandy Hook. There's been numerous occasions I've come to Guggenheim and the person at the security desk does not even ask me for my ID, she just waves me in. It's not because I'm a familiar face of the school. I went to the school in June before my child was even in the school to drop off registration papers for kindergarten. I left my pocketbook and wallet in the car. When she asked for my ID, I told her I was in the car and I will go get it and be right back. She told me it was okay, I could go right in anyway. When I went to the school just last week for the class holiday party, I offered the woman at the front desk my ID, and she told me there were too many people coming in that day, so she won't be collecting IDs. There's also been numerous occasions when I've arrived at the school and the desk is completely unmanned. Anyone could have walked right in. Just yesterday, I dropped my child off at school and no one was at the desk at all because the woman at the desk walked a child who was crying back to her classroom. She was lost and couldn't find her classroom. The desk was completely empty for 10 minutes as I stood there and watched in disbelief. There's also numerous openings in the fence around the perimeter of the school for a child to wander out or an insider to walk right in. I've also been told that the door that's used for recess is always kept unlocked. When I asked someone in the school about this, they told me that this is because if there's an emergency, they need to get in quickly. But what about the teachers outside simply having a key to the door or a key card entry? It would take only seconds for them to get inside the building that way and still keep insiders out. The lack of security in the school is just mind-boggling to me. Children are allowed to roam the halls freely with no adults checking that they make it to their destination safely, like the nurse's office, for example. Bus drivers let kids off at bus stops that are not their own or the correct bus stop. One bus in my neighborhood arrived at a bus stop a few minutes early a few weeks ago. Not a single parent was there, and the driver let the entire stop of kids off without any adults there to get them. These are elementary school people. I was so concerned about all this, and when I called the transportation coordinator, I was told by her that there were just too many children on the buses for the driver to know or supervise who should get off where. It's outrageous. My younger child is in nursery school, and their security at the school is very strong. There's only one door to enter the school through, and the school's actually inside of a very large office building. Everything else is locked. You need a key card to enter through the door. Then you enter a waiting area or lobby with someone sitting behind a glass window who must buzz you through a second door. No one can enter that door at all unless you're buzzed in. It's locked at all times, and the woman at the desk watches everybody who comes in. You must also present ID and sign in the logbook. The other doors and windows throughout the building are alarmed, and each classroom, as well as the main office office has a panic button that goes right to the police. No one would have to pick up a phone to call the police in an emergency. These are all ideas that could be easily implemented in our schools at little cost. I also received an email from the Sid Jacobson JCC in Roslyn with a specific action plan and immediate changes that will be made to their security. I've spoken with friends in other districts across Long Island, and they've had security guards at their schools prior to the events that happened in Connecticut. Marlborough, New Jersey
3
began
minutes.
putting... Time.
3 minutes.
Can I have my husband finish? Is that okay?
Chabad on Shore Road recently put in $100,000 worth of cameras and panic buttons, etc. All of the buildings are considered bulletproof windows. The building is considered bulletproof windows. My child's summer camp has installed a strict security policy where no one is allowed to enter the campus unless escorted to their destination by a member of the staff. We have an ex-police officer at the front entrance and are also considering arming him. There was an article a few weeks ago about the safety of school in America, a school in Illinois. One of the measures that they have in place is that each visitor must have an ID scan for a full background check before they enter the building, and 8,000 schools in the country are already using the same system. So what specifically is done to increase our safety? We've been told that the school has a strong relationship with the police department. What exactly does that entail and mean, and what efforts are being made for them to monitor our school on a daily, continuous basis? No detailed, specific plan has been laid out for the parents with tangible and immediate changes that will be made. Most of the other districts have seen numerous emails and letters detailing the many changes they will make to enhance the security at the school. I still stand here confused about what specifically is being done, and would like you to consider the following. Improved security desk behind glass, a panic button linking all classrooms to the police department, and a fence around the entire perimeter of the school closed with holes filled in, and additional recess monitors. Let's be proactive and not reactive here. There is no price too great for the safety of our children.
Hi. There is a way in which safety and security issues overlap.
Can I have your name, please?
Oh, yeah. My name is Elisa Triffelman. Safety and security issues can sometimes overlap disaster planning in a larger way. And one of the perspectives that disaster planning brings that bears on the specific situations we're facing now is the matter of the training of personnel. When there is an emergency situation, the natural human response is to either freeze or to take flight, okay? And one of the problems when you're facing one of these low frequency but very, very, very terrifying events, such as a shooter, is that people might actually freeze in place unless they have enough training. It's not enough, for example, to have people training twice a year. Okay, that's enough to sort of have an inkling, but if the actual event was to occur, it would not be enough for people to have the reflexes to know what to do. And that includes even something as very simple as pushing a panic button. Pushing a panic button means somebody has to take, a 1/10 of a second and know, okay, it's time for my hand to go hit the button. And I realize that sounds somewhat like I'm trivializing it, but it is a real factor. People have to be prepared to handle the unthinkable. And unless we, whether we free up time or we come up with a creative way to train within the time that's already had, teachers may or may not be able to perform, regardless of how good their hearts might be, how much they might very much want to protect the kids. They might not be able to because they might not have the skills and the reflexes. And the same goes for, non-teaching staff all the way down the line, and, including the custodial folks. So I know that there's a lot of training and drilling that goes around fires. That makes a lot of sense. That's a somewhat higher frequency event. There's similar training that goes on around tornadoes and bad storms, and I would imagine some amount of training for flooding. But my impression is that human events, human-made disasters are a little bit less trained for, and I think we need to start thinking about that in a more systematic kind of fashion. Thank you.
If there are no other community comments at this time? Yes? Okay.
Wendy Cohn. My concerns are also with security, and I'm very disappointed in what's going on tonight. I haven't been here in a while, and this is really a sad day. But I hope you do have some school board members who take security as their niche. That's going to be their thing, to beef up security in each and every school. I hope some of you will take that on. And I'd like to see some communication through reports to the homeowners and the people who live in town, the school reports. I'd like to see really detailed reports, what's going on in the schools. As was mentioned, I'd like to see reports on locking doors, alarms, cameras, buzzers, how you would create a drill to have a lockdown in each and every school. As this woman said, drilling the teachers, principals, staff, the children, drill them so that when you have to have a lockdown, they know what to do. I'd like to see response time, the police station responding to each school. Did you do a drill? Do you know how long it will take? We should have a report to the community, what it is. And again, the training, even bus drivers should be trained to react. So I hope some school board members will take this on, and I'd like to see reports to the community.
I believe that will end our community comment portion of the meeting for now. I will move on. I would just like to welcome everybody back. A happy and healthy new year to everybody. It's our first meeting of the 2013 calendar year. And we have not been here since the tragedy at Sandy Hook, so I just want everyone to know that, of course, this isn't a niche for any individual on the school board. It's something that every member of the school board reacted to immediately and takes quite seriously, but more importantly, it's been something we've been dealing with for a long time before this unfortunate event. And when these things happen, of course, it brings a lot of new things to light that you have to work on, but much of it has already been things that we have been working on, and we'll hear more about that tonight in our discussion about the security that is going on in the district already and things that are being changed. But I do want to thank everyone that came out tonight to express their concern. It is such a terrible tragedy and such a sad topic for all of us, but it's important that the community comes out and expresses their concern for all of our children, and I do appreciate your coming tonight to do that. And as far as community members that spoke that don't have children in the district, we will try to make an effort to have the reports that we give and the information to be disseminated to the community on a more widespread basis, because if you don't have children in the school currently, you may not be getting some of that. So we'll be working on that. And now I will make a motion. Oh, no, go to the superintendent for your report.
Okay, I do want to welcome everyone back and to wish everyone a happy new year. And as Mrs. Sloan said, this is our first meeting since the tragedy occurred, and I do want to express publicly just how very saddened and how upset all of us have been with regard to this, and to send our condolences to the Newtown community. It's a terrible tragedy that they experienced, and something that again we have all felt It is tonight that we are going to be providing more information about what's going on with our security procedures. However, I do have to be clear that the presentation does have a disclaimer, because security experts will tell you that there are certain specifics that we cannot discuss publicly. But we do have some very detailed information to give to you tonight and to tell you what we have been working on and where we're going for the future, and that will lead to a board discussion on this topic as well. Another topic that's related to this that is also very important, but something that we're not going to really emphasize tonight, is the mental health issues in identifying and working with children who may be exhibiting certain types of issues. We have addressed what we offer here in the schools and the strength of our mental health services and our professionals in previous presentations, particularly this past fall, mostly because of the DASA, the Dignity Act requirements, but this is a district that has always been extremely supportive of having strong mental health staff, and it's another area where we are looking to make sure that, we take care of the needs of our children in that way as well. Just a couple of other items from my report. I do want the community to know that our APPR plan has been accepted and approved by the State Education Department. I can't overstate enough how important that was for us to gain that approval. I do want to thank, again, this could not have been accomplished without the collaboration and collegiality and cooperation with both the administrators and the teachers, particularly Christine Vasilev and her team from the PWTA, and Dave Mioli and many of the principals working, so closely to get this completed. The board is adopting the final version of the plan tonight, and the plan itself should be available soon on the State Ed website and on our own district website. In addition to increasing our collaborations, Christine Vasilev and I did go to each of the schools, and we spoke with the faculty to begin explaining exactly what the plan involves for them, for their evaluation, and it's very important that we work together in doing that, and we're happy to do it. In another area where we have some really, really great collaboration occurring, we are initiating a review of the math curriculum. The PGCD approved a subcommittee to start that process. We also approved a subcommittee to start looking again at some elementary and middle school assessments. Again, working very, very hard to coordinate our efforts and to bring recommendations both to the superintendent and then to the board. Just a little bit on the budget process, because the budget process is going to be many of our conversations over the next few board meetings. Our next budget overview or update will be on January 22nd. However, it will not be a specific, detailed sense of the budget. We don't have all the data information yet for that, but we hope to have a little bit more information to provide an update and maybe provide some historical background. February 5th is the board meeting where we are officially scheduled to begin the budget discussions. So I do encourage members of the community to come out for that. And finally, you're not aware, this is our inaugural meeting where we have live streaming. And so you're on TV, in case you didn't know, as we are as well. And we're very excited to have started that technological new event as well. So that's my report. And I'm sorry, I would just like Elaine Fennick, our Human Resources Administrator, to give us a very brief enrollment report update.
Everyone's helpers. Hi, as of January 2nd, 2013, our enrollment is 5,289. It is continuing to increase. Thank you.
Student report.
Thank you, Dr. Mooney and board. Schreiber parents and students should be receiving information about upcoming Regents and Midterms Week. Tomorrow, January 9th, there is a meeting for junior parents which starts at 7 and ending at 9 about the overview applying for college and those steps. It will be held in separate rooms, and then Naviant's presentation will be held in the auditorium. On January 17th, there will be an athletic orientation presented by our wonderful athletic director, Ms. Joannan, at 6:30 in the Schreiber cafeteria for 8th grade parents. Also on January 17th, the department chairs will be available to talk to incoming 8th grade parents about the overview of their department and the programs offered at Schreiber. This will be held in the B wing. All winter teams are doing well. Some highlights are the boys basketball team won the Malvern tournament over the vacation. Girls basketball won their own Lady Vikings tournament. And wrestling team sent 4 wrestlers to Madison Square Garden to compete in a tournament. And girls gymnastics is 5-2 so far. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now make a motion for the approval of the minutes, December 11th, 2012. Do I have a second? Ms. Johnson, all in favor? 7-0, thank you. And now we'll go to the discussion item on district security. Dr. Mooney.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. As we stated earlier, this evening we do have a presentation prepared where we would like to review some of our security procedures and some things that are under consideration for change as we move forward. I do have here to assist me tonight 2 very important individuals in the district who really are knowledgeable and help with security. One of them is David Miller, who's the assistant principal at Schreiber High School, and he also helps co-chair the Emergency Preparedness Committee, which we'll give you a little bit more information about. And the other individual is Jim Restano. Jim is our Director of Facilities, and he is also officially the District Safety Officer, and we have had quite a number of things happening, and we will be talking about those, as I said tonight. Again, we do have to have a bit of a disclaimer. There are certain security information and measures that we cannot provide specific details about, but we will try to give you as clear an overview of what's happening as we can, and hopefully answer many of the questions that were asked here tonight. So we'll get started.
Members of the Board of Education and community, colleagues, thank you for being here and for giving us a moment to share with you some of the things that have been going on in the Port Washington District in regard to safety, security, and preparedness. There's no question that the safety of children is of paramount importance to everybody in the district. The single most important expectation of parents is that their children come home at the end of the day. I have a 9th grader and a 12th grader. Most of us in school have children, and we all share that same expectation with you. Newtown, Columbine, Aurora, Illinois, not a school, but still something very tragic, Virginia Tech, these things all teach us fear, but they also teach us other things. They teach us how to mitigate, they teach us how to prevent, they teach us a lot of things that we then can put into practice Over the course of time, the police force, as well as schools, have learned from these events and do our very best to learn how we can protect children better. And I think what you'll find as we go through our presentation is that there are things that have been in place for some time that are good. There are some things that have improved dramatically over the years, and then there are some things that we continue to look forward and aspire to do. I listened very carefully to some of the comments that community members made today, and there are some very valuable suggestions there, and there are things that are food for thought. So I think it's important for you to know that when we go back to the Emergency Preparedness Committee and the District Safety Committee and other bodies that exist that weigh these things, that we will certainly discuss the things that were raised by parent members here. The presentation today is basically broken forth into into 4 different categories. One of them is the organizational components and the committees that exist here in the Port Washington District that help us to plan and to manage security operations. The second is the level of preparedness and planning and what goes into those things. The third is some of the security measures that are currently in implementation, and the last are things that are under consideration and are in our plans or in our discussions, I should say. One of the things I'd like to stress, and it's interesting that just yesterday, Mr. Restano and myself were at a briefing by the Nassau County Police Department and the Bureau of Special Operations. Bureau of Special Operations, BSO, commonly referred to as SWAT, are the men and women that are trained to respond in the event of an emergency. And one word kept getting repeated over and over and over, and that word is planning. Planning, planning, planning. The single most important thing that any school can do is to plan and to train to be able to deal with an emergency. And in this regard, I think you'll find the state of the district is strong. There are several key staff members that are responsible for the safety and security operations in the district. Of course, Dr. Mooney, Ms. Callahan, Mr. Restano. Mr. Restano is the Director of Buildings and Grounds. He's responsible for all safety and planning. I am one of the assistant principals at Schreiber High School. I happen to be in charge of safety and security at the high school, but I also am one of the beginning members of the Emergency Preparedness Committee, which was founded by Dr. Gordon and by Mr. Seiden. And that's a committee we'll talk more about later. And David Crow, who's our lead security guard. We have 6 security guards at Schreiber High School, and they are shared with other district schools. All of these security guards, it should be noted, are ex-Nassau County Police Department or New York City Police Department or Nassau County Corrections officers. They're all highly trained. The committee structure that we have in place is one that's tiered. We have, at a district level, something that is called the Emergency Preparedness Committee. As you can just look through the names of the people on the committee, it is comprised of community residents, members of the fire department, police department. Some of the gentlemen up here have incredible expertise, and they're community members. We have a gentleman who used to work on the FBI and is now currently works at the FBI. Used to work for, was a captain with the New York City Police Department, and one gentleman who was responsible for all safety and security operations for all of New York University. Doctors, firemen, police department officials, surgeons, board members who have had tremendous expertise. It's really a pretty incredible body, and when we sit around and talk about the state of the district and we talk about the things we want to do, the things that we have done, and our response systems, the dialogue that goes on at this table is rather impressive. I learn something new every single time we meet. So what does this committee do? It serves a lot of vital functions. It brings together members of the district staff, local first responders, community residents who are experts in emergency preparedness. It harnesses the expertise of the community and of local first responders because we all come together. We review and discuss the district response to crisis, and the committee will then advise district personnel, the superintendent, et cetera, on matters relating to safety and security. In a sense, we act as a a clearinghouse for ideas and information, and we're often the birthplace of significant safety and security enhancements in the district. One of them you drove past on the way into the building today, and that is it's not a photo mat booth, in case anyone wanted to know. That is our new security and information booth, and it's Mr. Restano's office has done a fantastic job putting that together, and we thank him. After many, many years, the board and Mr. Restano have made that possible. And I also want to thank Mr. Seiden, I don't know if he's here today, who worked tirelessly to make that happen as well. So that's on a district, that's on a board district community level. Underneath that, we have a district safety committee, which acts as an umbrella for school safety committees. The district safety committee, again, you can see comprised of a number of different people from within the community and within the school system. HSA members, security personnel, support staff, administrators, all led by Mr. Restano. And this is the place that all of the different security planning things come together, all right? And underneath those are building safety committees. And they are responsible for building safety plans. And they meet multiple times a year with teachers and with administrators and with support staff and parents in their buildings to create their building plans and to review their templates. Now, all of the plans that are in place are designed around what's called the BOCES template. Peter LaDuca, who is the executive director for BOCES safety and security measures, has put together with his team a template that follows New York State Safe Committee guidelines. The schools all complete and follow and then add to this template. These templates and these safety plans, which we'll talk about in a moment, which are extraordinarily comprehensive, are then part of the district safety plan. And that district safety plan then acts as an umbrella for all of these plans together. By the way, those plans are all reviewed every single year, and then they're presented to the superintendent. Key to those committees are what we call multi-jurisdictional relationships. That is with the Port Washington Police Department, the Sands Point Police Department, and the Port Washington Fire Department. These are our first responders. These are the people that when something goes bad, they're going to be, well, probably the second ones, because it's probably going to be teachers and administrators who are the first ones, but they're going to be the ones helping us out. So we have those departments. We also have officials that work with us from the Port Washington Manhasset OEM, Peter Foreman, for example, who sits on our Emergency Preparedness Committee, and the Town of North Hempstead OEM, and that's Mr. McDonough, who also sits on the committee and has been on the committee for many, many years, and they're both community residents, by the way. These relationships are essential, and I can't stress enough how important this is and how other districts would love to have the relationships we have. A local police department means everything in these situations. They respond in minutes. Someone asked about response time. When the panic button was pressed as a test at Schreiber a couple of years ago, without the police, whether the captains knew, but without the police department knowing, the response time was under 2 minutes. Under 2. It's radically fast. It's an incredible response. I've not measured regular responses, but I happen to remember that one. So what is that? How do those relationships help us? How do we leverage those relationships? It's committees, it's communications, it's police training in schools. In 2009, there was an active shooter training exercise held at Schreiber where the entire Port Washington Police District Police Department was trained in how to engage in what's called the diamond formation. This is a military-style tactical exercise where police learn how to breach a building and how to eliminate an active shooter. These are new techniques, something that most parents don't understand, something that most people don't know is that since Columbine, there has been a sea change in the way that the police respond to active shooter scenarios. Prior to Columbine, the way that the police responded was seal off an area, cordon it off, wait for SWAT, then go in. What did Columbine teach the police? It taught them that when that happens, there are dead children and dead teachers and dead administrators, and the police walk away and they mop up. That has changed. The model that the police now use is You get there, and you get in by any means necessary. And there are specific tactics that they train, this diamond formation, that they use in order to effect that rescue. And what you find is that they're in buildings within minutes, and most of the time you'll see these perpetrators, whether it be, I don't remember the guy at Virginia Tech's name off the top of my head, but then Adam Lanza, they end up killing themselves. And that's the pathology there. As soon as the police get in, unfortunately, they all do learn from each other as we learn from them. For example, in Virginia Tech, what many people don't know is that he chained the doors shut. Police weren't ready for that, so they had to break in the windows. They had trouble getting into the building originally. But we learned from those things, and the police are now armed with semi-automatic rifles and barricade busters to break in doors. So being able to know that, for example, as a school district and as planning personnel is essential, because we know what they're going to do. All right, planning and preparedness. So what do? We talked about, and then we're going to get to some of the technical bells and whistles and what we've done. The Port Washington District under Mr. Restano has subscribed to the BOCES Health and Safety Training and Information Service for the first time this year. Before Newtown, Mr. Restano recognized the need to bulk up planning and preparation. And he subscribed to this service, and these folks have been in the building. Someone mentioned needs assessment. These are the experts that came in and did needs assessments in each building and looked at our buildings and looked at our plans and said, what do we need to do to improve? And under Mr. Restano's leadership, we are in the process of revising building-wide planning and preparedness. Each of the schools will follow the BOCES template, and they will include identification of command structure using what's called NIMS architecture, that's National Incident Management Service. And they identify key personnel, all their contact information, specific response measures. I cannot tell you what they are. Those are things that must remain confidential. Why? Paducah, Kentucky. District plans were released. Evacuation maps were released. They were public. 2 children sat in the woods at the evacuation route and shot at evacuees as they left the building. There are multiple evacuation routes from Schreiber and other schools. We will not release them in advance. We do that to protect children's safety. Each plan mandates specific planning, drills, and preparedness measures that each school will undertake. The district plan will then have the emergency response plans from each building. They all have maps, evacuation routes, sheltering sites, and other pertinent information for every single school in the district. These are also shared with police and first responders. At the building level, the same things occur. I think I duplicated that slide. Pretty similar stuff. So what are the mandated drills? Someone talked about making sure that people are prepared and ready and can react. It's absolutely correct. Could you always do more training? There's no question you could always do more training. There's the ability to respond without thought is it's one of the reasons the military trains over and over and over again, and that way they're able to follow directions in combat, and that's absolutely the case. Fire drills, there are 8 fire drills required between September 1st and December 1st, and 4 between December 1st and summer recess. That's Section 807 of New York State education law. We have to do it. The law mandates at least one of the following each year: a lockdown drill, a sheltering drill, sheltering in place drill, or an evacuation drill. Most schools exceed that. We have done at Schreiber, for example, because I can only speak for mine, we've done lockdown drills last year, and there's another one coming up this year. And I've spoken to the other schools. They've all done lockdown drills or have them in the works and are planning them. Schools and school personnel are very, very comfortable effecting these drills. Each school also, by state law, conducts what's called a go-home drill every year, and this is coordinated by the district transportation department, and this would be if we needed to get everybody out of a building into an alternate site quickly. We can get buses up and know how to transport them out. Other planned drills and exercises, the following are planned for this school year. All district schools are in the process of planning what are called tabletop exercises. This is what BOCES and police and first responders and Department of Homeland Security recommend for all organizations. We've done them in the past by the district and at Schreiber and at other elementary and the middle schools, and we're going to be doing them again. The tabletop exercise is a tool where scenarios are presented to school officials, administrators, members of the building safety teams and committees with first responders present, and they drill us. How would you respond in this situation? How would you respond in that situation? And there are after-action reports that are written by the facilitators who run them. They are professionally facilitated. And then from those reports, we're able to make changes to plans as are necessary. Weber and Schreiber will be planning to do an evacuation drill together this year. We've done them probably every other year for the last several years. And as I said before, all district schools have drills planned or have already conducted them. So, bells and whistles. What are some of the things that we have? Because I know that everybody is interested in those types of things, and they're important. They really are. Every school, as most people know, has a panic button. They are not just at the front desks. They are also in another location, which I will not disclose, but I want you to know that that is something that we have thought about. Connect Dead is a safety and security enhancement that is very important, that is new, that was brought on by Mr. Balin a number of years ago. This gives us the ability to reach out to staff and to parents in a way that is rapid and to give you information as best as possible. Reportit.com. As I sat yesterday at the briefing with the police, I kept thinking about how important Reportit.com is, because the police kept stressing how important information filtering back was. Knowing what happens, because all of these people that do these terrible, tragic acts plan, and most of them talk. You watch the news this weekend? Mepham is a school in my home district. How was the potential plot at Mepham broken up? He went and talked to people in the mall. It took a few days, but this individual decided to report it to school officials. The principal reported it to the police, and the police found the gentleman and arrested him. Connecticut High School 3 years ago, a very well-planned Columbine-style attack was averted because children that the person had been talking to and posting things on Facebook about came and spoke to school administrators. We go beyond just having someone go face-to-face. We actually have an anonymous reporting service. I can't begin to tell you how important Reportit.com potentially is in getting information and being able to act on it. We have camera systems, Situcom camera systems at the front desk at Guggenheim and Sousa. They can actually stream video back to the police department when turned on, if we choose to. There is a camera system at Schreiber that covers a number of doors in the cafeteria as well. Starting the year before last, we started bringing in ID cards for all district staff members, just like the one around my neck. So all district staff are identified. Thanks to Mr. Ostano, a new card access control system has been installed at Weber and Schreiber. This was grant funded. It's not come online yet. It's actually, the implementation started in September. The construction finished up, the installation a few weeks ago. Yes. A few weeks ago, and we're going to be turning it on shortly, and this will make sure that all of the doors are locked, key codes and pass cards to get in, and really give us a way to secure most of the building. And what it'll also do is kick off an alarm when doors are ajar. This way we can make sure that the doors don't remain open. At a high school, it becomes particularly difficult because sometimes kids like to put little rocks and pennies in the door so that they can get back in, and this way we know when it's happening in an efficient way. The police department, Port Washington Police Department, 3 years ago donated a GEM car to Campus Drive Security. This enables security guards to get around the Weber and Schreiber campus and try to act and respond more quickly. Last year, we enhanced the walkie-talkie system. We had to reprogram all to go on narrowband frequency. We also, at that time, installed a district-wide frequency so that all the radios throughout the district can speak to each other, and there's been a complete revamping of the frequency and channels. One of the new procedures that was brought in 3 years ago, I believe, 2010, 2 years ago, was involved visitors to school. And I did hear that there was some concerns about places where that might not be carried out, and that's certainly something that we care about and we'll be discussing in committee, and I'm sure the superintendent took ample note. But what we do is all visitors must provide photo ID, driver's license preferred upon entering the building, and they must also sign into a log. That ID is held on file until the visitor has left the building. Visitors receive a sticker denoting the location they are going, and that ID is only returned when they leave. We do this to provide for rapid identification of all visitors in the event of a disturbance, and that way if the police want to know who is in your building, you have their driver's license. That's something that we discussed with the police department before implementing, and they were very supportive of. Things in progress currently, and these are not things that are planned, these are things we are currently installing and doing. We have ordered new ID cards for all staff. We're going to be reprinting all new ID cards so that we can utilize the access control system that's currently in place. The new security information booth that Drew drove past on Campus Drive is currently being installed. There is a buzz-in access control system first going into the annex and admin buildings, and then will be followed by other schools. This is in progress. I'm not sure how long the entire project will take, but people talked about buzz-in security. It is being installed and it is on the way. And all plans, as we discussed previously, are being reviewed and revised in all schools and district-wide.
As of yesterday. I just want to add one thing to this. As of yesterday, I'm Jim Restano, by the way. As of yesterday, we're going to be having a training. Nassau County Police Department will be training at Sousa Elementary for a active shooter drill. We just planned that yesterday. Didn't get on the...
Yep. It's so new, it didn't even get on the PowerPoint. Professional development and training is key. Myself, Mr. Restano, and Mr. Crow have received extensive training not only by the local police departments, but Nassau County Police Department and the Department of Homeland Security. I even went to an FBI training a few years ago. That was interesting. Myself and Mr. Crow actually participated in an active shooter training that was conducted by Nassau County Police Department at Kings Point Merchant Marine Academy. We then turnkey train other staff, and administrators train their staff. We've also subscribed this year to the BOCES Health and Safety Training and Information Service, and they will further augment training. And school staff is updated yearly by their principals. It's very important that with these things that we all remain up to date. So, what are some things we're thinking about? What are some future considerations? We are considering bringing out the card access control for staff entry to all schools, not just the campus schools. We are looking at door access monitoring for all the non-card access doors here at Schreiber. Right now, we put in, I think, 6, Jim, was it 6 doors here at Schreiber?
Yes.
We put in 6 at Schreiber and I think 5 at Weber, and those are for staff entry. The other doors remain locked. But what we want to do is branch out from there to make sure that we can monitor all of the doors in the building, because obviously that's important. It's better than, it'll be a little better than walking around and looking for them. This way an alarm would kick off when they open. We are looking at a walkie-talkie repeater for all district-wide narrowband radios. That would enable one radio here to talk to a school at Guggenheim, if necessary, or any other school in the district. One of the things that we consider is expanding security presence district-wide. And do we want more security? Do we need them? Do we provide a vehicle for them? These are things that are under consideration. One thing we're looking to do is to harness the ConnectEd SMS text abilities so that we can send out brief text alerts potentially to students. It would work better at a high school than it would in an elementary school, obviously. But if we needed to get information to, say, teachers or high school students in an active shooter scenario, maybe we could send a text message out. It's something we're looking at. We're interested in expanding the camera system here, and also possibly bringing in an outdoor PA system on the campus for the high school and middle school. This way administrators could direct large groups of people in the event of an exterior evacuation. Things under consideration, obviously, what we can do and what we can't do is constrained by whatever constraints there may be. So, that being, that's the end of what I have. Mr. Restano, Dr. Mooney, do you have anything else I missed?
Good job.
Just before we get into questions from the board, I really just wanted to thank both Mr. Restano and Mr. Miller because they put a lot of time and thought into this presentation and really wanted to be as comprehensive as possible. We do have some different things. Again, as we said, we have many things going on, many things under consideration. The only other piece that I would just add to what Mr. Miller had presented was that we are under the jurisdiction in our school district of 3 different police departments. I'm not sure if people are aware of that. We have the Port Washington Police Department, the Sands Point Police Department, and the Nassau County Police Department. And the police departments have been in contact with me directly, aside from the different committees that are involved, and they are being very proactive. They are patrolling our schools on a more regular basis and trying to be a more regular presence at the main offices in the schools. We want them to have familiarity with our schools, with our school plans, because in the event of something very horrific occurring, all 3 police departments would respond. And again, the more familiar they are with our schools and how they're laid out, the quicker that we can respond. So at this point, I think I'll just open it up to questions from the board, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. I just want to thank you both also for the time you put in tonight's presentation and the time you put in all year round on this very important matter. And I am the newest member of the Emergency Preparedness Committee, and I just want to point something out that I noticed right away, being a new person to it, that many of the people that are in that room have been involved with the FBI and other organizations such as that, and they have actually experienced terrible situations like this and worked on them, and their advice to us is really invaluable, and they all volunteer their time. So they couldn't be here tonight, but I just want to thank them publicly for all the time and effort they give to our school district. I just wanted to mention 2 things. I feel that we should really be trying to review these exercises yearly. I'm grateful that we did one in 2009, but it was 4 years ago, and I know it's hard to have the time and resources for that, but I would think that everyone involved, meaning the first responders, would probably agree that maybe we have to look into doing that more frequently. And in addition, I agree with the point about the staff training. I think this isn't something that's second nature to anybody, and we shouldn't expect it of our staff. So I think that's something we really have to look into as well. So anyone else? My question is, we will have further discussion about some of the ideas about things that you're looking to implement and what kind of resources we'd need to implement them upon your recommendation and that of the emergency preparedness and the district safety and all of that. That will be forthcoming.
I'll answer. The question is, Karen, I'm sorry?
Some of the points at the end of the
Yes.
presentation that you talked about looking into.
Yes,
And we'll talk.
how would be the funding through budget? Through
So we'll
my-
have the idea of what kind of dollars we're talking about.
We would, yes, we have to gather proposals and plan this out, and
Okay.
the proposals will be brought to the board.
And will you be able to get back to us on some of the concerns that community members had with some of the things going on in the schools currently and how we can look to alleviate that? It might be a question of some more staffing.
That's
Correct.
ultimately up to the board, but that
Right.
would be a recommendation.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Or a different approach to the staffing, so, we're taking a look at that piece as well. And in terms of the funding, as we said, Mr. Restano was able to get grant money to help with defray the cost of some of these things. We look to the actual, the budget that we currently have, and we prioritize within there. And then if there are other needs, we'll certainly bring that to the attention of the board as we go through the budget process. But you can see that we're very serious about this, and we want to do everything we can to protect our students and our staff.
The other thing, I know we can't talk in detail, but it's also worth mentioning to the community that thankfully, thank God that we have never had any kind of situation in our district of this magnitude, but we do have situations arise, and they are dealt with successfully and efficiently so that no harm comes to any children or staff members. And, you know, we have been planning for things all along, as I said, but of course, when something of this magnitude happens, it's nothing. I don't think a school would have been prepared for it fully before something like this, but now I think everyone is probably reviewing all of their precautions. So, any other board members? Mr. McDermott?
Yeah, one thing we might be able to do right now is one of the community members mentioned that I guess some parents felt that they weren't getting good information regarding this right in the aftermath. I mean, if we can figure out better what groups didn't get the information that they felt that they would have wanted to get, since a lot of the information here might have gone a long way towards alleviating some concerns that people had immediately after and during when things were going on. So I just want to incorporate that community comment into maybe we can actually come up with something. Again, find out which pockets of people were not getting information, and because it sounds like we had good information to give people, just a better way to get it might be easy to do.
I think that it was important to coordinate the information and present it in a very comprehensive manner with explanation, and that this presentation now will be on the district website as well as the recording of this meeting. So if anyone wants to actually listen to the presentation, because I don't think that just reading the slides gives, it's a good outline, but I think hearing the presentation and getting the details, I think Mr. Miller was very articulate in his presentation and he covered a lot of ground. So I think both of those things will really help people understand what we do.
Just a question. When we had a couple of the community stand up, one of the things they mentioned was this service of instantly doing what appeared to be an online background check now employed by 8,000 school districts. And then there are other things. I mean, Jim, you and I went back and forth the other day about the type of doors we could put into classrooms. It was interesting when you commented that some are illegal in a sense of having bolted doors inside classrooms that teachers could close and prevent people from entering at that point, but they're actually outlawed in the state of New York, which was one thing. But I'm reminded of the sort of the double plastic wall scenario where you get buzzed in and you sort of stand in this little fish tank almost before you can get in. And right after this, it reminded me of when I visited a company that was always at risk of terrorist possibilities, and that was exactly their scenario. You got off the elevator and they could see you through the walls, and then you had to go into this little no man's land, if you were, and the outer door closed before the inner door opened. How are we going to flesh out to a degree if those type of systems belong? What would we have to do them? What process are we going to actually go through if we even wanted to bring some of those things to fruition?
You can start on
Right. I think the answer to your question is the process that's in place is the process that we would use to bring things to the Board of Education. The Emergency Preparedness Committee can take recommendations from Mr. Restano and some of the things that we've talked about and come up with ideas, and Jim could give ideas on cost. And then the board has to eventually decide whether or not they want to spend the money necessary to bring those plans into reality. You talked about, and community residents had talked about background checks, and there are kiosks that you could subscribe to that could sit at each desk, but everything comes with cost. And previously, certain things that we've talked about, we've opted not to do primarily because of cost, sometimes other reasons as well. Every event that happens changes our way of looking at these things and the lens at which we view what is an appropriate cost and not. So we'll see when we present things what changes and what doesn't.
The other thing I'd like to add to that, Mr. Bear, training, I believe, of the staff of identifying possible potential bad guys. I think that's my goal, to get the staff trained on identifying certain key things. But the other thing we talked about, there's a component called lobby guard. It's a unit that does go on like a front desk where you would enter your license, scan your license, the person would take it back, and immediately they would do a background check for certain, criteria. Those are things we can implement, in the buildings. And listening to the public, I think that is one of the things that becomes higher on the priority list right now, because that is something immediate that we cannot do. All the training that we have, we cannot do that. And that's a statewide, it would check you statewide, so you'd know exactly, if there's a problem with this person immediately. That with training, I think we can take a leap forward.
And just as a follow-up, the committee meetings, are we posting those, and are people invited, or they're not open to, because of the material that's being discussed?
Yes.
That's
okay.
right.
But is there a way that community residents can send suggestions, or where are we funneling that? For example, the information from tonight that was presented as community comments, where can that information be funneled, or would it go to Jim directly?
That's an interesting comment, and I did write that down in one of my notes before. That is, we would, welcome, suggestions, because we're staff, we're limited, we have a certain amount of staff, but we have a lot of community members.
I think what we'd like to do is create something on the website so that they're not just going into different places, that it's all going, into one place. The other thing that I just wanted to mention, I don't know if it was clear, but the safety committees are mandated by the SAVE legislation, and they are internal committees that must be run, within the schools. So our Emergency Preparedness Committee, it is really a function of the fact that we do have some very expert security individuals in our community who are willing to volunteer their time and work with us on these issues. So they're two important committees that really work in tandem, and they complement each other. So we have the outside community and we have the internal committees that we must have. So.
Larry.
Two questions. One is at the very beginning, Dr. Mooney, you mentioned psychological issues, and I guess is there any mental health people on these committees? Because I guess I'm concerned about that students are fearful in the schools because of the things that go on, but that also every security measure that we take that is overt has a psychological impact on the children that may affect their learning. So while we do want to protect the children, we want to be cognizant that they're in an environment where they can learn well. So I just like to make sure that we address that part of it.
Yeah, we do. Those individuals do participate.
Great,
in the committees, yes.
And the other thing is, this is probably not a valid sample, but over the years that I've been on the board, when we've had discussions about security incidents that have come to us, a lot of times the person involved was a person known to the child involved and was a parent or something like that. So rather than somebody who was not supposed to be there, there was somebody whose background check would have checked because they were allowed to be there, and we didn't know that they were having a custody battle, or we did know, and that's why we didn't let them in, or things like that. So while we do want to protect against the very severe rarer event, what the nuts and bolts of security is protecting against the one person going after one child for one particular reason event, which is more common, and generally not a person who isn't supposed to be in the school, but is a person who might actually be, we might think has legal access to be in the school.
And we do deal with those situations on, an ongoing basis. They've existed before this, and they will continue to exist. And, we always coordinate and talk about and, work out the best ways to handle those situations. But we are on alert for those types of things, and we do know most of the time. But you can't know everything at every moment.
Right, yeah, I just want to be sure that, that as we look at these other things, that we don't lose sight of those
Right.
basic day-to-day things that
Right,
we've been doing
absolutely.
for
No, it's
years
a fair
and
point.
working on.
That's
So,
correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just have a couple of questions for information, and Jim and David, I think you'd be the people who could answer this, because I don't know. The background checks that have been suggested, how robust are they? What do they look for? I mean, there are several things I'd like to know. Is it criminal records?
I believe a sex offender, that's one. DWI, I believe, any kind of outstanding.
Would it all?
I don't know, and I could get back to you with that information.
But it's
The
definitely.
one thing I'd like to know is, would a background check reveal anybody who's licensed to carry a weapon?
Again, I don't know, and I'd have to get
I'd
back
like
to you.
that I'd like to know.
Yeah.
Also, as Larry anticipated, one of my questions regarding psychological issues, I mean, do they test for, because it's a slippery slope, are you testing for overt issues? Are you testing for people who are in treatment?
What kind of test are you referring to?
Check the background checks, I'm sorry.
Background checks are not going to identify anybody with psychological issues. It's just merely things that would be available in New York State databases that are public information.
Public information only?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll get more specific information for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be good. I mean, the other issue is that I think that anything we have to do has to be done with the greatest of sensitivity, because we don't want to scare the children into realizing that this is this constant state that we have to live in. It's
a balancing act.
It really is.
Do you really feel safer at the airport?
Are you?
Do I? I take planes all the time. Actually, I do in a way.
Are you?
Yes, I'm done.
Turn off.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the worst incident we've ever had in Long Island was that fellow Colin Ferguson a few years ago who shot up the Long Island Railroad people. That's
The worst that I could remember.
the worst we had, right? I don't remember how many people. I don't know if Long Island Railroad ever did anything to, put security in the trains, but I remember on 9/11 they had the state troopers on the trains, but it was more of a show of support. Listening to some of the people tonight, is this the first incident, I don't know, in the United States where youngsters, I mean really truly young kids were targeted?
There's been shootings in elementary schools, but sixth graders, that was Paducah.
Yeah, these kids were first.
These kids were much younger. This is the youngest that I can recall.
Yeah, what I was hearing tonight from the people were that they represented some of the youngest students in our school district. And listening to the presentations tonight, I'm saying to myself, have we prepared too high a level, a high school and the grade school level? Have we also done an adequate job of making sure that all 7 schools were properly?
The plans,
Yes.
yeah.
I just want to speak to, when we talked about the building safety committees and the building level plans, that is for all 7 schools.
kids.
And they're all identifying, again, key people, working through lockdowns, evacuation drills. That's
Yeah,
why we have the template so
Yeah,
that.
I think people need to hear that because the presumption, I think, on a lot of people's part might be that we're focusing on the higher grades.
Right. But it is across the board in all of our schools, district-wide.
Two or three other things, you mentioned planning. Planning is key, and I would agree. But people also like visible signs, and they're very expensive when you start doing the visible signs. Someone sitting all day at a desk, putting up bulletproof glass, all this other stuff. Is that a great defense? Is that a good defense, or is someone who really wants to do something bad can get through it?
I will tell you what I heard yesterday. And first of all, are they a defense? They're a defense. Is it the defense? The answer is no. One of the parents said they know, and it's the truth. If somebody wants to come into the building and do harm, they're going to do it. Adam Lanza came in, shot through the glass, shot the person at the desk. The principal and the guide and the psychologist ran outside. He shot them immediately. He then went to the office. He then went to a classroom in another classroom. You could put glass up, you could put booths up. You'd have to really armor something.
Yeah, just one
And
last.
then there's other windows,
Yeah.
big buildings.
One last comment is that some of the parents mentioned that, I don't think I won't make any comment on it, but there are kids running in the hallways without supervision. I think we just need to address that, That's, that's something for the administrators to look at.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you again very much for the presentation and the information. Oh, Mrs. Callahan.
Yes, thank you. I didn't want anybody to walk away after the exchange with Mr. Baer thinking that the doors to the classrooms are not locked. I think your exchange with Mr. Restano was about having heavy-duty bolting, but each classroom is now locked from the inside, capable of being locked by the teacher. Is that right, Mr. Restano?
Correct. Yes, we just recently finished every classroom door in the district. We have the capability of locking the door from the inside. We have that in place.
And recently, the board subcommittee went and did a walkthrough through the buildings, and we did also identify 2 buildings where there was a rear door that was being used back and forth for students to come in. And the intent is to create a buzzer system on a temporary basis until the locking mechanisms are put in at the elementaries. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
We will now move on to committee reports, policy and personnel.
Sorry, better. The Policy and Personnel Committee is continuing to work on our social media policy. I don't have the date in front of me of the next meeting, but it'll be posted on the website. We also have, I think we're the 18th? Okay, we think it's the 18th. It is the 18th.
Yes, 8:30.
8:30 in the morning in the administration building. Also, tonight we'll be submitting for second and final reading our revised standing committee policy, which has had several revisions, all of which actually just updated to what the practice has been over the last couple of years and streamlines it for easier use. Thank you.
Budget and facilities, Mr. Baer.
Not much since the break. The next meeting is Monday, the 14th at 8:30 at the Daily Annex. Yeah, but I'll be on the phone. Lots of good stuff, though, will be discussed there, so everybody's invited. And as Dr. Mooney highlighted earlier, February will be the first review of some of the hard numbers as the state provides us, hopefully, with information throughout the month of January to round that in, so we're not talking fantasy, but closer to reality.
And curriculum, Mr. Greenstein.
We haven't met since our last meeting, and our meeting of the 22nd is canceled.
Date to be rescheduled soon. I will now move on to item 10A. It will be the award of tenure for Patricia Borzon. Do I have a second for that motion? Ms. Johnson? Any discussion, Dr. Mooney?
Just Just wanted to say that Ms. Borzon has been an elementary teacher in the district for several years. She started as a leave replacement. That's why she's on a little bit of a different cycle than the traditional May appointment for tenure. She's a wonderful teacher. I've observed her several times myself over the last few years. I know that Dr. Muley also very wholeheartedly recommends her for tenure, and I believe that as a district, we're very fortunate to have her teaching abilities.
Call to question, all in favor? 7-0, thank you and congratulations. I'll make a motion for action items A1 through 4. Do I have a second? Mr. Johnson, all in favor? 7-0, thank you. And I will turn over to you, Mr. Johnson, the board policy, item 12. Do you want me to do it for you? It's tonight, we're approving the policy for first reading, Standing Committee Policy 2250.1.
Yes, thank you.
Do we have any old business? New business, Mr. Greenstein, I believe you do?
Yeah, last night I was at a meeting of the Mandate Relief Committee, and they had some interesting things that I wanted to share. Locust Valley did a survey about testing. This is all related to something that coming down the road that New York State signed on to called PARC, which I'm sure somebody else can come up with what it stands for. But what it actually means is we will be testing children grades 3 through 8, 9 to 10 times a year between math and ELA. And all the tests must be done on computers, and they all must be done at the exact same time. Anyway, in this Locust Valley study, more than 85% of the parents said that PARC testing would be disadvantageous or have no impact on their children. Additionally, 74% of the families surveyed support prohibiting the state from issuing new mandates without funding. The state education department has said that this shouldn't be a problem because everybody's budget should have 5% devoted to technology. So in our case, that would be somewhere north of $6 million a year. It's also been, some districts have tried to figure out the cost of technology, and they say between the cost of acquisition, the cost of software, the cost of maintenance, and the cost of personnel and training, it costs $1,000 per computer to maintain them. If we need, according to the state, we would need to have 400 computers approximately for each grade level, 3 through 8, and there is some talk that they're going to extend the testing down to kindergarten because the kids should learn to test younger. But anyways, at the very minimum, that's 4,000 computers we would need at $1,000 at $1,000 a computer per year. You know, we're talking some pretty heavy money right there. That's not including the cost of the test, the cost of the substitutes, the cost of everything else, and the loss of 5% of the instructional time of the district by using 9 days out of 180 to test the kids. So all of that is a way of saying that we're trying to focus some attention on this, and seems that the way to go is to try to educate the parents and the community on what this is doing, because this is sort of an issue where our tax dollars are being diverted to something that most of the educators in the state believe has limited value. And under the tax cap certainly is taking away from other things that we feel do have more educational value, and that will start coming in as we start talking about the budget discussion and all the hard choices we have to make. And then one of the choices we're not allowed to make is to not spend this several $1 million a year that we have to spend on this testing. So I guess what I'd like to get is a sense of the board, whether we want to remain active in this, whether we want to bring it forward to the parents, whether we want to try to educate people on this and get some of this information out, and then see where it goes, whether if the parents want to run with it and start contacting legislators and things like that. So I just thought I would bring you all up to speed on it.
How are you proposing that we would do that?
Well, perhaps we can start with Parents' Council and maybe, inform them and they can go back to their memberships. And, this committee is hopefully going to be working on some resources that people can use. And this is a committee made up mostly of community members and parents. It's not really a board committee. There were a couple of board members who were there just representing their districts. But, and so there will be form letters and petitions and things like that all being organized, but this really has to be a grassroots movement because despite the fact that in the Education Reform Commission report, they said the only people who brought any good ideas to the table were board members. Board members are deemed to be a special interest group by the governor. So it really has to be, really a grassroots effort. So that would be my first place where we would start.
Larry, your mic.
Oh.
I certainly am supportive of it, but I think we have to bring it perhaps to the parent council meeting and see if there are parents that are supportive of doing it, because if we can't be involved, then we have to make sure they have the interest. Verna, did you? And then.
I just want to say I'm really impressed that Dr. Mooney was able to get this beta version of the webcast going. I mean, I'm not normally texting during the meetings, but there's actually a chat feature on here. So I'm like chatting with all you viewers at home. But this is a really excellent thing, and I can't believe, people have been talking about doing this for a while, but getting it done, and we were just really talking about it this summer. And Dr. Mooney was able to get this up on the website. So, like you mentioned, for an archive of presentations, or if people had a question about something and they don't get to go to the board meeting, how great is this? You can watch this at home. It depends on what your idea of entertainment and what you think is great, but I think this is pretty cool. Also, the chat feature is interesting. I don't know if we want to get to the point of possibly fielding questions from the community. I'm just saying it's a possibility that we've opened up here. Exactly. But at the very least, I think it probably is ready for advertising to let people know that this appears to work pretty well. So anyway, hats off to Dr. Mooney for really getting this thing done in very quick manner. I didn't think this was going to get done for a couple of years because of what I had heard about how people had suggested it in the past, but looks like it's a success, and I just want to... Also, the chat feature is interesting. That's scary. Hold on, I'm waiting to catch up with myself. Hold on.
It's a new iPad.
Right here on top.
Turn off your mic. Turn off your mic.
Where is the mic?
I just want to say that Dr. Mooney suggested that the board members and everyone sitting up here that we really need a green room now. We need hair and makeup, wardrobe. I think it's a good idea.
Well, any local businesses, so we can help fill the budget gap, maybe we can work on advertising.
Larry, I'm in favor of your proposal starting off, and the question I have, I saw in the material you sent around to everybody about Regent Tillis. What was his response to this plan? Did he have any opinion about this?
Small.
I'm sorry?
Small.
Well,
This was small.
I understand. That's why I want to get it out.
I haven't spoken to him directly on this, but in general, he is, there's an awful lot of things in the regions that are 12-1, and he's the one. So I think he's as frustrated as a lot of us are about this thing, although I've not discussed this. There is also, New York State signed on to PARC. There is another consortium called Balanced, and it's still over testing, but you're allowed to use scantrons. So it takes away the technology cost of it, and some states are allowing both. New York State is only signed on to the computer-based one. So there's certain other issues involved in that. New York State took $750 million with the promise that we'd send a lot of data to the state. And so now the state has to go out and get data to send to them, or they have to reach, or they've taken the money under false pretenses. So they're just looking for data, and whether the data is meaningful or meaningless is sort of irrelevant to their purposes.
I think getting the trustees of the regents on board with this, or to have some response to this, would be very important in this case. I think that's the first step to do. I really do.
Well, the regents were the people who signed off on it because the regents own the commissioner.
Not all of them.
Yeah.
Not all of them.
One didn't.
Yeah.
One. Are you done?
I'm done. Oh,
sorry.
Just as a footnote to this, it impacts us immediately because one of the items for Monday is the consideration of adding $400,000 to our budget for this coming year to start to accumulate the sum nearly of $1 million as a reserve should this be put into play. So it is by no means something that is not immediately in the next 90 days going to impact discussions for our budget. That if we have to start reserving huge sums, that will come out of some other piece of the budget, and it would still mean the following year that we would have at least 600,000 more to go to hit the initial 1 million, and if we use the 1,000, that actually totals 4 million, and we would be well short there. But it is an item that we'll talk about on Monday for consideration. It'll follow through into February, March, and April.
And if you look at it, this is scheduled to go into 2014-15, so it is down the pike. But also, if you realize that all of a sudden we have to start testing and we have to have solid internet connections for that many kids taking that many tests at that many times, and we do have a very, very bare bones IT department, so we might have to look at ongoing costs to augment that to be able to just provide the testing on those 10 days a year.
So Larry, I will reach out to Parent Council and see if they can make time on their agenda for you at the next meeting. That works for you? Okay, great. Thank you.
Just one other thing. The Legislative Task Force is actually meeting tomorrow night, I believe. And that's an open meeting, right? That's not, anyone can attend? Is that public? I believe it is, right?
That is public, yes.
Yeah.
And they have this. I sent that to them. I sent this
Okay.
to Rob.
I mean, if people have a strong opinion about it, they want to express it, 7:30 tomorrow night?
I don't know because I won't be here.
I think it's 7:30 tomorrow night at the Annex.
At the Annex, right.
Yep. Okay. So anyone interested in going to the Legislative Task Force Committee meeting tomorrow night, that's when it is.
If there is no other new business, this will be our last opportunity for the community to be heard this evening. Anybody? Okay, we're closed out on that, and we are adjourned. Thank you.